Hey everybody, it's Atheist for the Cause here, and I wanted to do a YouTube video about the possibility of Trump getting impeached because this is being talked about so much. And it's really overblown, so let's get to it. Here, first of all, people are talking about how Trump's polls are way down. And I wanted to go over that. With Charlottesville going on and everything, you can see that Rasmussen is still at 42%. Gallup is still at 38%, which Gallup is one of the polls that usually doesn't have Trump as high. Rasmussen usually does have Trump a little higher. So this is about standard for where these polls are. I mean, Quinnipiac is 39%. This is actually higher than where I've seen Quinnipiac be because they're usually very anti-Trump. 38% for NPR, PBS Murris poll. If you go down to YouGov from just a couple days ago, 42%. So, I mean, then you do have, polls like Reuters here, Reuters Ipsos at 35%, but so there are some in the mid 30s and high 30s, but there are still those in the low 40s. And this is about, like I said, where Trump has been. And if you look, and this is, with the post Charlottesville, it's actually on the decline. Like, the Trump is actually closing the gap significantly. So the messaging that Trump put out about how, both sides are to blame about Charlottesville and that there's bigots, and then he came out with the messaging about specifically about white supremacists and how that's not acceptable. I mean, the nuanced argument that Trump gave will get him a lot of criticism, but among the masses, especially the silent majority, and people don't really realize what silent majority means. It's the people who really aren't political on their day-to-day lives. Those people determine the elections for the most part, and overall, these polls show that the public in general, which mainly from the silent majority, is supporting Trump's message. And that makes perfect sense because a lot of the outrage about Trump's message, especially from the left, is completely fabricated outrage. And there's nobody in their right mind would be upset that Trump denounced both, the far right and far left. So then I saw this NBC News article that there's a poll of 40% now support Trump impeachment because of the Charlottesville stuff. And this is from August 17th. And if you look at it just real quickly, the Republicans, this is key here, they went from 4% to 7%. That's, within margin of error, that's nothing. And so if only 7% of the Republicans are going to support Trump impeachment, there's almost no chance of Trump impeachment. Or even if he does technically get impeached by the House, he wouldn't be removed from office by the Senate. And I'll go over the rules for impeachment and removal soon. But the Democrats have spiked a little bit from 58% to 72%. But even honestly, like as much outrage as the Democrats have, I'm actually surprised it's not higher. If this started getting into the 90s, I mean, then there would be huge support. But I mean, this just shows how drastically our country is divided. Independents well below 50% believe in it is jumping, but that's what you would expect in a major event like Charlottesville, especially given the media attention. And since Republicans control both the House and the Senate, the only way to impeach is for Republicans to get on board, and they're only going to get on board if this number rises. I mean, Republicans would have to support it, I don't know, probably 50% or something like that, or more. So we're not close to a Trump impeachment. And overall, as you can see, it's 30% were for impeachment, and now 40% are. So it jumped 10%, but that's mainly from Democrats and somewhat from independents. And that'll probably go back down as we get away from Charlottesville. Now, how do you impeach and remove a president? It says here, a majority of the members of the House must vote for these charges in order to impeach the president. So in the House, you need greater than 50% to vote for impeachment after you go through the different proceedings to get a vote. And then it goes to the Senate. After the charges of misconduct are filed, the Senate has the power to try impeachment cases like a court. But remember, this isn't a criminal moving. It's a political one. So there are completely different standards between a criminal, act and a political act by Congress. So 2/3 of the senators must vote for conviction. So you need over 50% for the House to impeach, which means that there will be, a trial for the president. But then 2/3 of the Senate have to approve that. That's a lot. So where do we stand now? How close are we to that? Well, first, before I get to that, there's even issues with interpretation. I'm not going to go through this whole article, but there are like 4 major, or maybe even more. I think there's 4 major different ways of interpreting the Constitution, and you can read about them here. But if Trump hasn't actually committed a crime, he could potentially challenge any impeachment that happened anyways legally, because he could say that it's the impeachment is constitutionally unjust and therefore has no legal standing. But that depends on the interpretation of what Congress means, which would have to go through court, and a judge would have to decide. Now, for Congress, where we are now, for the Senate, we have 46 Democrats, 2 independents, and that these independents caucus with the Democrats, so effectively call them Democrats. And then you have 52 Republicans. So that sounds close, right? But remember, in the Senate, you need 2/3. So you'd need 67 senators to vote for a Trump impeachment, and you'd have to get a lot of Republicans on board. And then in the House, you need a majority here, and you have 194 Democrats to 240 Republicans, no independents. That's 44.6% Democrats, 55.2% Republicans. Okay, so you'd have to get about 6% of the Republicans on board to combine forces and get every Democrat on board. Now, the House is a little weird because there's so many candidates or so many representatives that usually votes in the House aren't strictly along party lines. They'll break party much more often than in the Senate. Now, so I could actually see the potential for impeachment is possible with there are some Republicans like John McCain and Susan Collins and those types of people that regularly, actually they're in the Senate, excuse me, but there are those types of Republicans in the House as well that could break. and so it probably wouldn't an impeachment probably wouldn't happen, but there is a slight chance. Now, now where do we go from here in the future? Well, the 2018 midterm elections are coming up, and that could change the environment for Trump impeachment. So all 435 House of Representatives seats will be up for a re-election. However, in the Senate, it operates differently, and they have like Class 1 and Class 2, and also Class 3. And only Class 1 is up for re-election. So what this means is that, as you can see here, here's Class 1. The election was 2012 and now 2018, because they're 6 years apart. Class 2 it was 2014 and will be up for re-election in 2020. Class 3, the election was 2016 and will be up for re-election in 2022. Now, because the House, you never know what's going to happen there. But as I said, it's like 55% Republican. Maybe the Democrats can find a way to take a majority, or get enough Republicans on board post 2018 re-election. But it's the Senate that really matters for removal. So let's not worry about the House too much. If we get removal, then, if we get impeachment, then we look here, and there are 23 Democrats up for re-election. 2 independents that caucus with the Democrats. That means effectively 25 Democrats up for re-election in the Senate. Only 8 Republicans are up for re-election. Okay? And remember, in what I said in the Senate, right now there are 52 Republicans. So now if you consider that only 8 of the 52 are up for re-election and 23 Democrats, even if all of the Democrats got re-elected and all of the independents that caucus with them and every Republican switched sides, they still wouldn't have enough to vote Trump out and actually remove him from office. This is how far of a long shot this is, okay? So they would have to get like all of these 2 Democrats to hold their positions, and then probably steal some of the Republicans, and then still get Republicans to switch over. Realistically, the only chance for removal is for Republicans to backstab Trump. That's the only way. Now, interestingly enough, to kind of go off on a different topic a bit here, but while we're talking about it, Republicans may be positioned to win filibuster-proof Senate majority in 2018. And this is what I've been saying. This is actually from December 15, 2016, but I want to show you that the magic number for Republicans to reach a filibuster-proof majority is 60. And so that means that the minority party can't just go up and talk forever to stop votes and things like that. So if a filibuster-proof majority comes for the Republicans in the Senate, it basically means that the Republican Senate can do whatever they want. And, obviously the larger majority you have, the more Democrats the more Republicans the Democrats have to sway to do anything. And so basically, if you get to 60, 61, 62 Republicans, the Democrats will even have a tough time obstructing at that point. All the obstruction would have to come from the House of Representatives. But it's much harder to obstruct in the House of Representatives, I guess. But anyways, so if we look back at the Senate here, oh sorry, from trying to find the right window. Um, if we're at 52 Republicans, we only need 8 of the Democrats to lose their seats, while holding on to the 8 that are Republicans that are up for re-election. So we need 16 of the seats total. So we need 8 of the 25 Democrats and independents, and then have these 8 Republicans. And you'll have a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate. Now, I would say that it's more likely that the Republicans gain a filibuster majority than the Democrats, gain any reasonable numbers on the Republicans, just because there's so few Republicans see up for re-election. So everything is in the favor of the Republicans, despite them having the majority. This is pretty rare times. This is how massive the pushback against the Democrats have been lately, because of how batshit insane they've been. And so you don't really have to worry about, Trump being removed from office. The only thing, as a little caveat here that you have to worry about is that basically the Democrats could come up with some sort of BS if they get enough numbers in the House, if they win a majority in the House, and they just vote to impeach Trump with no chance of removing him from office. That would help obstruct quite a bit. So that's like the biggest threat. But I think if the Democrats did that, that would only lead to their downfall even more, because sure, you obstruct Trump, but then there's going to be even a bigger backlash. Congress has an extremely low approval rating. I'll show you that here. 10% is where their approval rating is here. 8% here. Now, Reuters has it at 21. I find that hard to believe. It's almost always low single digits or low double digits. But if you want to look at the congregate, they had gotten it, a little bit here. They kind of closed the gap, but now the gap's growing again for disapproval. So this gap is massive. So it's about 60% difference between approve and disapprove. So as you can see, 8, 21, 10, 19, 18, 11. So overall, 8 and 20. Aggregate is 15% approve, 73% disapprove. And that's including the 21% approval rating. That's kind of an outlier here. But as of late, there were some of these were a little higher from before. I think that was around the healthcare bill time. So anyways, I'm going to end it here. But as you can see, there's not too much to worry about with Trump getting removed from office. It would have to be a massive backstab by the Republicans, which would take, there would have to be massive Republican approval for that. There's not. So it's not going to spike suddenly unless Trump does something massively wrong. So, yeah, from the information we have, there's no chance of Trump getting impeached and removed from office. The biggest threat, to summarize, is the House gaining a majority in 2018. That's why you have to go to the polls, getting a majority Democrats. So go to the polls, vote, at least in the House, vote Republican just to protect Trump. And that's where I'm at. I mean, I would consider a Democrat if Democrats weren't threatening to constantly impeach Trump. So now I have to basically vote down ballot Republican to protect him. And I'm someone who voted for Obama twice and Trump. So I'm someone who can go both ways. And yet the strategy of the Democrats is only hemorrhaging people who would consider voting for them. And there's a lot of people like me. So I'll talk to you guys later. I hope I eased some of the fears out there about the potential of Trump getting removed from office. And it just really shows you how ridiculous Democrats are being with saying that they can get Trump impeached and all that. And the fact that the, you know, politicians are playing this up. They know everything I'm saying, and they're still playing it up like there's a realistic chance to impeach Trump, dividing our country, causing massive violence to the public. And yet Democrats are pretending like they want to reduce violence. They're doing everything in their power to continue to divide the country. And this exposes that. This video exposes that drastically. Otherwise, why are they pushing for impeachment? So, with no chance to win, and they know it. And no chance to get them removed, I mean. So, anyways, have a good one, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, and share.